Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I heard there was a big party last night, and then I heard that there was an after party after the party. So how many here were at the after party after the party? Because that would be really impressive. One at the back, well done to you. That's really impressive. Okay, so yes, my name is Vaughan Zoutendyk. I'm from Commerce Edge. And I'm here to talk to you today about a report that was released by the World Economic Forum about the future of jobs and skills. So let's dive straight in. We'll look at the work of machines versus people. We'll look at why this is important, and we'll look at some skills to develop and why. So for those of you who don't know, the World Economic Forum is the international organization for public and private cooperation. The forum engages the foremost political, business, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. So it has a role to play, and it's a significant body. As far as the fourth industrial revolution goes, and you've probably had this up to here over the last few days, but the fact is it's here to stay. So things like artificial intelligence, computer and IT systems doing the work, automated messaging, processing, invoicing, communicating with customers. You've got things like blockchains. You got robots, you got cars that drive themselves. What could go wrong, right? So in that context, we're looking at skills, we're looking at our futures, and we're looking at jobs. So let me ask you a tough question. What would you say if I told you that the number of human labor hours will decline by 33% over the next 7 years? What would you say if I told you that by 2025, more than 50% of labor hours will be performed by a machine and not by a person? Does anybody want to hear the rest of this presentation? Just one over there. Let me come and have a chat to you directly. Okay, so sounding a little gloomy, right? Maybe more importantly, what does this mean for you? Maybe more important to that, what does it mean to your children? This is a rate of automation slide that comes from the World Economic Forum. Effectively, it shows you on the left-hand side, 2018, it's giving you a division of labor as a percentage of hours spent. In 2018, the human percentage was 71, machine percentage was 29. In 2022, the human hours will be 58%, the machines will be 42. In 2025, the human hours will be 48%, the machines will be 52. Where's this going? The jobs landscape. In 2022, you'll see the top 10 declining at the bottom, which is a little bit maybe difficult to read from the back, so I'll help. Top 10 declining jobs: data entry clerks. Okay, that's not working. Accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks. Administrative and executive secretaries, assembly and factory workers, client information and customer service workers, business services and administration managers, accountants and auditors, material recording and stock keeping clerks, general and operational managers, post-service clerks. But at the top, you'll see the top 10 emerging jobs leading into 2022. Data analysts and scientists, artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions, general and operation managers, software and application developers and analysts, sales and marketing professionals, big data specialists, digital transformation specialists, new technology specialists, organizational development specialists, and information technology services. So that looks a bit grim, right? However, I haven't come here to give you bad news today. It is a Friday after all, and you've had a long conference, and some of you were at the after party after the after party. So there is some good news to be told. The demand for human skills is not in decline. Jobs with distinctly human traits are still in demand. According to the Future of Jobs report, 75 million current jobs will be displaced by the shift in the division of labor between humans, machines, and algorithms. But 133 million new jobs will be created as well. Isn't that good news, folks? Okay, so the recommendation is to build and develop and grow and cultivate skills that machines can't function in or that machines can't deliver on. So the World Economic Forum had this Future of Jobs report, and they highlighted those things on the board as critical skills for people to be building and developing as we go into 2020. So I think if they're putting that up there, that's reasonable enough for us to consider as skills that we can develop. They include critical thinking, complex problem solving, innovation and creative thinking, emotional intelligence, communication and teamwork, collaboration with others and being a person of influence, negotiation skills, service orientation, and leadership. And I, for one, am glad that there are skills that are important for now and for our futures that don't involve a machine and a keyboard. I had to make a call about this talk this morning about whether to cover all of these in some level of detail or to cover some in more detail to give you an idea how to develop in those areas. And I've chosen the latter. So I don't think we'll be able to get through all of these in the detail that we need to, but at least you have the list. So when it comes to developing skills, there's three things that are really important. What is the skill? On the left-hand side, you'll see that. What does that skill look like, and how does it get applied? So let's take critical thinking first of all. What is it? It's the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. What skills are needed for critical thinking? Attention to detail, observation, reflection, interpretation, evaluation, explanation, problem solving, decision making. These are critical skills. Immediately as I read out that list, if we had a bit of self-awareness going on and some analysis, we might think there's some things we do well, there's other things we don't do well. So how do we apply those things? We need to check thoughts that we have for clarity, for accuracy, for relevance, for significance, logic, fairness, common sense, invite others to participate, and have a team approach. So let's just, as an example, have a look at this. Is there anybody in this room that's ever considered starting their own business before? May I ask you, please, to tell us what the name of the business is, or what sort of business it is? What are we transporting? So is it sort of courier, like logistics? It's what? In the mining industry. Okay. So, what is your name, sir? Rion. Riyad. Okay. Can I just call you the gentleman with the white shirt on? Okay. So the current thinking is we want to start a business that helps mines to transport raw materials. Okay. So it's raw materials. So what are some of the vital questions that we need to ask about starting this business? Maybe you can help me. No. Well, I would think we need to find out, where are these mines, right? Who are they? Who owns them? What is their infrastructure at the moment? What does that look like? What are they currently paying for these services? We're asking critical questions that will decide whether or not we have a business that we can offer them. Okay? We might want to gather some additional relevant information. Maybe there's other people that we know that offer similar services. Maybe we can do some research at some of the mines to find out answers to some of these questions. It's very important under point 4 there. Do your thoughts agree or conflict with any other relevant information that you may have gathered about this? Because just because it's in my mind doesn't make it right. Just because it's in my mind doesn't mean it's correct. So I need a reference to compare against. Perhaps I need to get some input from some team members. I can ask other people who have expertise in this. Test any assumptions that I have. Discard any incorrect perceptions and thoughts. And assess scenarios and their implications, and then make a decision. So we've tried to take a little formula here and apply it to the start of a business, but it gives you an idea as far as critical thinking goes. If I'm going to critically analyze something, I need to do it in the right way, and there's a nice little structure and process here to follow. So what about complex problem solving? That's another skill that this is aimed at. It builds upon the solid critical thinking practices. One is able to look at a problem from different points of view, look at different alternatives, different solutions, and select the best solution. Skills that are needed for that would include things like analytical skills or creative skills. And analytical is really about ordering and comparing, contrasting, evaluating. And creative is about out of the box and looking for different solutions. So let's take a look at something like creativity and innovation, another skill as highlighted by the World Economic Forum. Creativity is the result of how we think. Practicing the habits of creative thinking allows you to break the barriers of what's achievable. And I want to share some interesting information here with you. Words to describe it. Creativity is the result of what we think. And practicing that habit breaks barriers. Words like innovation, change, disruption, remodeling, transformation, restructuring, revolution, those are words that talk about creativity. And we need to be creative thinkers in our work environment. So some of the skills we need is we need to be constantly looking for efficiencies, how to make things more efficient. Constantly looking for how to make things more effective. How can we do it better? Constantly looking to manage risk and some technical skills like project management or research. We might even need a little bit of courage because we might be putting forward something to the university that hasn't been done before. We will definitely need teamwork because we can't do all of these things on our own. And we need to be goal-orientated about finding a solution and pressing into that. So here's some interesting quotes for you. On the how section, Steve Jobs was quoted as saying, "Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. You can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use." Creative thinkers produce ideas by finding the relationship between the facts. When you see the connection between the facts, you're able to create something different. Here's another interesting point. Reality is the result of our imagination. You can create your best work based on the amount of vision you can put into a single idea. Even Einstein famously said that logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. Thomas Edison, John Lennon, and Leonardo da Vinci are among some of the greatest creative thinkers in history. Point 4, creative minds are curious about how things work. They're fascinated about how things link together and how they create a result. And this is especially important when it comes to working with our internal clients and also our students. Point 5, share your aha moments or your moments of revelation with your colleagues or with someone you can talk to. Sometimes an idea flourishes when we talk to people that we trust. Then the last point there about creativity and innovation is an interesting one. Strategy is sometimes chosen by us. Other times we have it thrust upon us. We don't have a choice. We have to embrace something and move forward in a new direction. So that in itself could be a form of creativity and a forced innovation. Emotional intelligence is another interesting skill that we're encouraged to build. So what is it? It's to be aware of and to control and to express one's emotions, to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional success. There are 13 signs here of high emotional intelligence. Have you ever done an assessment to find out whether you are an emotionally intelligent individual? You have. The two of you have. In the whole audience, there's just the two of you. But this is good self-awareness, right? It's good to ask these questions. So let's do a quick self-awareness, and it's absolutely free. Do you think about your feelings? All the ladies are going, yeah. All the men are going, Okay. Do you ever pause before you speak? Or do you just speak? You strive to control your thoughts. It's the most incredible thing. The thoughts that come into our minds, for some reason, most of us think they're all right. Not all right, they're all correct. We just take for granted that because it's in my head, it's correct. But that's not really true, is it? You benefit from criticism. If somebody criticizes you or tries to correct you, do you take that as what a great opportunity to do something better? Or do you go away with a stiff upper lip wishing you could give them a clap? You show authenticity, sincerity. You show empathy to people who need it. You praise other people. Sometimes we're so concerned about other people looking better than us that we don't give that away freely. Highly emotional, intelligent people will praise others in audiences freely. You give helpful feedback to people. You're okay to have that confrontational, potentially confrontational discussion. You apologize if you make a mistake. You forgive and forget. You keep your commitments. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. You're willing to help other people, even if there's nothing in it for yourself. You protect yourself from emotional sabotage and negative self-talk. Negative self-talk. I have a whole hour talk on that. It's a great topic. So lastly, how can I improve? Ask yourself 3 questions. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said now? Those are 3 good little questions that you can test yourself with to avoid you from stumbling in this area of emotional intelligence. How did we score? Did anybody actually do that? Did you look at the 1 to 13s? You know, I'm loving your participation. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I might fall asleep in my own talk. The lady with the black shirt on there, I thank you very much. Okay, communication and teamwork. Critical skill. Impossible to go anywhere without communication and teamwork. So we're going to look at 2 things. First of all, communication styles, and secondly, behavior. So I'm not sure how many of you have ever seen this before, but let's assume there are only 4 styles of communication, the world around. The first one, top left, is analytical. Analytical people want all the facts. They love to analyze facts. They're great for making decisions in a rational way, through their attention to detail and to the facts. But sometimes they analyze far too much. Do I have any of those people in the room? Only 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are our analysts. When talking to them with logic, make sure you prepare your facts well. Doesn't help to talk to someone who's highly analytical and you come with wavery information. I tried to buy a car once, and the only concern I had, I would have signed on the bottom line, the only concern I had was the fuel consumption because it had a big engine. And the only question I posed to the salesperson was, what's the fuel consumption on this vehicle? And he spoke for 3 minutes without answering my question. And for that reason, I didn't buy that car. I'm the analytical, and I needed that specific information. All right, what about below it? We have methodical. Communication style, methodical people. They want order, and they want to apply a process to everything. Don't you dare talk to them about shortcutting the process or ignoring a step in the process. That's just sacrilege. They want their process to work. They're great for finishing things, but they don't normally enjoy change. Surprise, surprise. When talking to them, talk each point to conclusion, stick to your agenda, but don't be disorganized, and don't introduce them to too much change. The only time we can get this lot to change is if there's good, credible evidence that a different way to do it has worked elsewhere and it's really efficient. That's how we would get them to change. But they're very methodical. Maybe other people have a tendency towards being visionary. They're opportunistic. They're risk takers. I'm not sure you have many of those in the university. Maybe you do. They're risk takers. They love new ideas. They're great for change. They're outside the box thinkers. They're not always good at completing things. That's the problem with folk like this. They're great. They'll give you 1,000 ideas in a day, but don't ask them to do anything with any of those ideas. Do you know anybody like that? There's no one in this room, right? There's no one here. Unless it can't be us. But there's definitely people like that. When talking to them about the future and the big picture, they'll love that discussion. Don't be inflexible and don't play it too safe. The world is not big enough for us. They're the guys that tell the longest stories, or the ladies that tell the longest stories at the braais and love to wave their hands everywhere, and they're very expressive. Lastly, connected. These individuals pay a lot of attention to relationships. They're empathetic and they're sympathetic. They will always be saying, but what about the students? But what about the students? But what about the students? And not that that's a bad thing, but that's what they would say. They might steer away from the facts, and they might steer away from the process, because people are the most important thing. Now, how many of us have heard about left brain or right brain thinking? 4 of us, 5 of us, 6 of us. So there is a view that the left brain would, for the most part, be the analytical and the methodical individual, and the right brain would, for the most part, be the visionary and the connected. I've spoken to quite a lot of clever people in South Africa, mostly professors and things like that, and they prefer to tell me, Vaughan, we have one brain. Try and build skill and capability in all these areas. Don't default into your area of focus. So that's the message this morning about communication styles. If you can keep all 4 of these areas in your mind with any particular planning session or any particular strategic discussion with anybody, you will be covering all the bases as far as what's important for communication skills. All right. Maybe also just to say that from a patterns of speech point of view, this will help you identify where you are or where your colleagues might be, or maybe where your important other might be. There's patterns of speech. So the top left, the analytical, will use facts to illustrate a point. You will often hear them saying, yes, but the facts are. Okay. They'll use a matter-of-fact tone of voice. They'll use technical jargons and acronyms. They always like to throw acronyms out. They might even use buzzwords. They often speak with clarity, and they're logical. They ask direct questions about value and function. The methodical will speak in complete sentences and paragraphs. They use precise, detailed words. You are often not confused by what they're saying, because they know what they want to say and they say it. They'll express skepticism and concern for safety. They like structure. They'll ask precise questions about quality and reliability that require concrete answers. So those are our methodical folk. Top right, the visionary, they'll use abstract speech and metaphors. They'll speak in phrases. They'll stop in the middle of a sentence and go in another direction. And then you'll wonder, but hold on, what were you were talking about this, but where you? No, I'll come back to that. You know people like that? Okay. They use visual language such as, do you see, or the picture that I'm seeing, or what I'm imagining. And they're big picture people. They'll ask very general, broad-based questions about concepts and innovation. And bottom right, they'll use stories to tell you about people to illustrate a point. They'll be quite talkative. They'll speak with warmth about personal issues. They'll express concern about people. They'll ask frequent questions about the way the product or service will benefit the users. May I remind us, we're looking at a presentation that the World Economic Forum has said this is an important skill. Communication and teamwork is an important skill for sustainability for our futures. So it's actually not that helpful for me to look at this and go, well, I'll just default where I am and I'll stay there. It's more helpful for me to say, how can I use all 4 of these areas in any of my interactions with people? One of the last points to point out regarding communication and teamwork is that people also have default behaviors as individuals. And now I won't ask you to raise your hand because I'm scared I might embarrass somebody or maybe just get no responses altogether. But there are interesting behaviors here, and sometimes we default into them. So the one is a competing behavior. a competing behavior where you have to win, right? This is called win-win. I won yesterday and I need to win again today, right? Communication generally refers to a tendency to want things to go your way. It's good when you're needing to direct people or even make decisions, but it's not so good when the need is for understanding or you need to collaborate with other people. I won't ask you to raise your hand, but maybe there's some competing folk here this morning. Then let's look at collaborating. You cannot have teamwork or good communication anywhere if you're not willing to collaborate with people. Collaboration refers to the ability to take all views into consideration when making a decision. It's good for getting to a mutually agreeable solution. It's not so good when you need to set the direction for something to happen, because then it just becomes a complete democracy where no one goes anywhere instead of a road that needs to be walked. There's also avoiding. Avoiding communication refers to a tendency to rather not be involved in giving your opinion and hearing others. It's good when the issue at hand is not important, but it's not so good when sharing the views are important. Anyone who's married here will know that sometimes the avoiding one happens a lot, right? Because you pick your fights, right? But sometimes you just avoid. Either it's not important enough or we don't have the energy to go there. The same thing happens in the workplace. But what happens is it leaves this huge chasm or this huge gap where communication has not happened, and 2 weeks or 3 weeks can go by, and because we haven't dealt with an issue, no one's moved forward on it, and we lose productivity. The last behavior talks to accommodating. This communication refers to a tendency to pay more attention and put emphasis on the other. It's good when harmony is required, but it's really not good if you're part of that decision process and your point is as important as theirs. So people steamroll over you because you sit back and accommodate. So these are all really interesting communication behaviors. I'm not going to go any further because we've got 2 minutes left. There might be 1 or 2 questions. Thank you for your time. A solid congratulations to all those that were at the after party that made it here this morning. And it's a pleasure to be back with you. We were with you last year, and it's a pleasure to be back with you all again. Thank you.